All right, I think we're getting close to getting started here. Our judge has arrived back from lunch. And if you are in group number 1, please be at the ring. I have an 8th grader, and at lunch he said he wanted me to tell a joke, and I said it had to be clean. So I think I can remember it, but he said, how'd it go? He said, at a convenience store, you used to be able to get air for free, but now it costs 25 cents. He says, why is that? Inflation. All right, we have 2 classes of market heifers. This is a lone entry in our first group. This is a heifer that is 986 pounds. Group number 2 will be heifers that weigh over 1,000 pounds. Group number 2 should be at the ring.
We're starting our market heifer show off with a heifer that's needing a little more time probably, but there is some muscle in this female. You look down her top, look through her stifle, there is some muscle expression. She just needs a bit more days on feed.
Receiving the blue in group number 1 is Savannah Mason. At the ring will be group number 2, market heifers. With the first class receiving the blue, our champion and reserve champion market heifer will also be coming out of this class. First call for group number 1, market steers. First call, group number 1, market steers. For our first class of steers, if you can make your way to the ring, we're still looking for Easton Thompson, Mason Sedlacek, and Dayton Pullman. That class will go in after the selection of the champion reserve market heifer out of this class. Last call for group number 1, market steers. Our champion heifer award being sponsored by the Gage County Farm Bureau. Thank you.
Let's just go ahead and bring those three out here and put them head to tail. Let's give all these market heifer participants a round of applause. I'm going to use this black and white heifer, and it's simple that she's just of superb quality. She's made very, very neat to look at. She has enough muscle shape. She's very fresh to the touch. And I'll be quite honest with you, I'd probably like her to be the ultimate breeding heifer maybe versus market, but she's carrying enough quality and enough condition to get there. She outdoes the class as far as look, eye appeal. She's maybe not as muscular as the heifer right behind her, but she makes up for it in just the way she's put together. She is outstanding in the way she looks. She's white-based, she's neat to look at, she's attractive. Everything fits well. She's really got show ring presence, and yet she's got some length and extension, and that's why these two separate themselves from the heifer in third. The heifer in second, you could make a case maybe she isn't as neat to look at as the heifers on either side of her, but when you think about performance and length of side and hanging these cattle on the rail, there's more dollars here. And yet she's covered very neatly. I think it's just that added length and performance and muscle that just for me puts her into second. Now I like the look of the heifer in third. She also has show ring look and balance and eye appeal. I'd like to maybe see her the same size as these first two. If we do that, then it gets really, really tough because she's a good heifer, wide base. She's got enough condition, enough muscle shape that she's just very, very pleasing. Then we go on into a pair of black heifers that are similar, probably not as neat, either one of them off their hind legs as the two or three that are ahead of them, but they're good cattle. They have muscle, and again, in purple ribbon winners all the way through. Those heifers have got some cutability and some muscle and some shape. It's not as neatly made off their hind legs, perhaps, as the heifers in front of them. Big red heifer, again, is more of a breeding heifer for me. I like her. I think she's just a tremendous individual. She doesn't have as much muscle shape as those heifers in front of her. Got more down through the middle part of her body. probably not going to hang with as much cutability, and that's where we need to change her. Heifer that completes a class, you can make a case that she looks like those just in front of her there and ahead of the red one, but I'd like to change her structure. I'd like to see her be sounder off both ends, like the muscle and the shape that he has, just like to change her structure.
Congratulations to your Grand Champion Market Heifer. Goes to Natalie Tronick of Wymore. Reserve Grand Champion Market Heifer goes to Bentley Myers of Wilbur. That class consisted of 7 purples, so great quality in that class. Receiving third is Tatum Schroeder. Fourth goes to Avery Kraus. Fifth is Seth Dean. Sixth is Laney Tronick. Oops. And seventh is Dayton Dorn. In the ring now is Group 1 of our market steers. These are steers that are weighing between 1,126 pounds and 1,240. First call for Group number 2 market steers. Second call, Group number 2 market steers. Second call, Group number 2. Final call, group number 2, market steers. Final call, group number 2.
Well, a very nice class of lightweight steers as we get into the market steer show, and a very nice place to start. Let's go ahead and lead those first 2 out and put them over here head to tail. There is some differences in them, and obviously where this guy excels is he's market ready today, and where you're looking at a market beef show. He isn't as elongated or stretched out as those next 2 steers, and to be honest with you, that's probably where I'd like to change him, but there's enough muscle expression, enough width, and enough cover that I think he comes closer to being what we say is ideal for market readiness. Let's go ahead and bring those next 2. These 2 are more similar in type and kind, and to be honest with you, I like that added stretch, that added length. They just need a little more time, days on feed. This black calf has a lot of look to him. He's fresh. You get your hands on him down in his flank, and he's got more finish than he appears, but he doesn't have near as much as the calf that wins. I like the muscle, the shape that he has. The red steer I moved up a notch is more like him than the steer that's just below him. They're good cattle, just need a little more expression, a little more finish, if you may. The red roan calf that's next, let's get these other guys kind of in there, and we'll get them. Let's just bring all 3 of those head to tail. The shorthorn appearing calf to me has a little better structure than the next 2 steers. He's a little more eye appealing when you look at the way he's made, his levelness. He doesn't have any more muscle shape, but he's got a better look to him. Again, he's probably just a little leaner down through his lower third than the red baldy. I'd like to change that about our red baldy calf. This red baldy steer, probably a bit more market ready than the calves on either side of him, but he's just not made neat enough out his hip. Just like him to see a little wider pinned and have a little morsel up high when we get back, when we see him from hooks to pins. The baldy calf that completes the class is a little neater to look at. He just doesn't have as much width to base. Just like to see him have a little more muscle expression, although when you do get your hands on him, he's got some cover. Let's give these kids a nice round of applause.
Entering the ring will be group number 2 market steers. Steers that weigh 1270 to 1360. Results of group number 1. Class that consisted of 2 purples, 2 blues, and 2 reds. Top Animal in that class went to Kean Morris. Second place was Dayton Pullman. Receiving blues was Mason Sedlacek and Shelton Crawford. And receiving reds, Chase Larson and Easton Thompson. First call, group number 3, market steers. First call, group number 3. Following that class, we will have the selection of the champion market and reserve champion market steers. A heads up for the breeding beef show. I was told that we're going to do it a little bit different this year. If there's a breed that has 3 animals or less, you're all going to show together in one class just to try to keep things moving along. So if there's 3 animals total in that breed, you will all show in the same class. If there's more than 3, then we will have the separate classes. Second call, group number 3, market steers. Second call, group 3. Final call, group number 3. Market steers, final call, group 3. Gabriel goes. If you have your steer, please bring it up to the ring and check in for group number 3. You're the final one that needs to check in yet. Gabriel goes. Please bring your animal to the ring. So again, we'd like to welcome our judge today, Kevin Jansen from Cortland, Kansas. He lives on a ranch there where they raise Herefords with his wife, Sheila. He has 3 children and also 3 grandkids. We're excited to have Kevin here. Comes with a pretty impressive resume. Like we talked about earlier this morning, he's judged throughout the entire United States. Not only that, he's also judged in New Zealand, Australia, and South America. Done a great job with our youth here today and a great job evaluating these animals. Let's give Kevin a big round of applause for taking the time to come to the Gage County Fair.
Well, folks, let's put our hands together. This is a nice set of fat steers. The steer that wins it is long enough, he's meaty enough, he walks good, he's market ready. To me, that's the easiest thing to come up with. At second and third, it's the toughest. I watch these cattle come through in their showmanship, and I go, this is a really good steer. You get him out here and get him with his contemporaries, he's a really, really good steer. Like his balance, like his muscle, like his shape, like his correctness, he's just a very useful kind of market steer. The young man in the second steer and the young lady in third, you could trade them back and forth, but the Hereford steer's sounder, and that's simply why he's going to be reserved in this class. He's much better off his hind legs. He's market ready as well. Probably the smoothest finished steer in the group. And when I mean that, I think he is market ready, but he is also sounder. I like the muscle. I like the show steer look of the steer in third. There's no doubt he's market ready, and there's no doubt he's loaded with muscle. He just can't walk off his hind two legs. We've got to change that about him. We do that, then he wins the class. I'll be quite honest with you, but he needs to be sounder. The steer right behind him is another good steer, another purple ribbon calf. You get your hands on him, he's a little bare between his ribs, and that's why he lands there. Big-bodied, big-rib kind of calf, has some muscle shape. I like that about him, and I think this young lady deserves a purple ribbon. The steers right behind him are a little different in their makeup. Bigger frame steer that just needs a few more days on feed, but I like his muscle shape this young man's turning out here now. He has a nice look to him, he just needs more time. The young lady's calf right behind him is a little the other way. He's got muscle and he's got cutability. He's just a little extra on the condition down through his lower third. And then we complete the class with two red ribbon calves that are very useful, they're very sound, they just give up some muscle shape. We just need to see a little more cutability, but good, useful cattle. Nice class of market steers.
Enter the ring now will be our last group of market steers. Steers weighing 1496 to 1606. Following that, we'll need the top two from group number one and group number two to compete back for the champion or reserve champion market steer. Results from class number two, a class that consisted of 4 purples, 2 blues, and 2 reds. Top purple is Booker. Second went to Trevor Kapke. Third is Tatum Schroeder. And fourth is Dayton Dorn. Receiving a blue is Dayton Pullman and Addison Koenig. And running out the class, Ruby Goes and Chase Larson. Following our champion and reserve champion market steer, we will then go into the breeding beef portion of the show. Once again, a little bit different than years past. We are still showing by breed, but if your breed has 3 head or less in a class, or 3 or head or less in the total breed, we will show all the animals together. If there's more than 3 in the breed, you will have your separate classes. The breeding beef show will start off with Angus, so we'll go ahead and start getting those ready and bring it up to the ring. At the gate should be the first two from group number 1 is Dayton Pullman and Kean Morris. Out of group number 2, Trevor Kapke and Trevor Spilker.
Well, in our heavyweight class of steers, all the steers are what I'd say is market ready, and obviously, depending on what you think's too big, you might be in disagreement with me. But let's give them a round of applause, and I'll quickly talk to them. You could make a deal that maybe these steers are a little too heavy for what they say the ideal show steer is, but if you fed any cattle lately, I know we just got back our kill sheets a couple weeks ago, and we had a number of steers that were weighing 16. And I think it's more the norm than you're not, especially if you got some cattle with some performance in them. And this calf is a meatball. He's just loaded with muscle. Yes, we may want to just refrain his size just ever so slightly, but there's just so much more muscle in him, and he's pretty useful in his movement. I told the young man he looks like a meatball to me, and if we were to change him, we'd just lower that size just a little bit, but I'm not going to be critical when there's three other steers in here that are pretty big as well. He's just got more muscle and more cutability. The black calf behind him, let's bring all four of them out. The black calf behind him is rugged. He's a little leaner down through his lower third, which at this weight it might be an advantage as far as cutability. Probably doesn't have the internal fat in him that we see in the calf in front of him, but he's got the hip that we have and the muscle that we have in the first two. The calf that's right behind him doesn't have the muscle shape. He's a big old rib steer. He just needs to have more lower muscle as we compare him to those in front of him. Calf that completes the class, just a little more elongated, just like to see him probably have a little more rib and volume as we compare him to the more mature steers in front. Really good, useful set of cattle, big, heavy, muscular steers on the top end.
Top two purples out of that class. Winning the class is Logan Koenig. Second is Boston Crawford. Third purple went to Rachel Beeler. Receiving a blue in the class is Gabriel Goes. Coming into the ring now will be your selection for the champion and reserve champion market steer here at the Gage County Fair and Expo. Top steer from group number 1, Kean Morris of Wilbur. Second was Dayton Pullman of DeWitt. First purple from group number 2, Trevor Spoker of DeWitt. Second purple, Trevor Kapke of Wilbur. And once again, out of that third group, Logan Koenig of Beatrice and Boston Crawford of Beatrice. On our breeding show, we need to have all Anguses come up to the ring. You will be up after this selection, followed by Charolais and Galway. If there are 3 or less animals in a breed, we will show them all together. If there is more than 3, they will be broken out as per the class in the schedule. Grand Champion Market Steer, sponsored by Orscheln Farm and Home of Beatrice. Reserve Grand Champion Market Steer, sponsored by the Beatrice Concrete Company. If there's a representative from either of those companies, please come in front of the announcer stand and you can present the award to the winner.
well in our champion market lineup as we get our 3 first placers lined up, followed by our seconds. Let's give them a round of applause. It's been a very enjoyable early afternoon. We've looked at a lot of quality cattle both this morning and now this afternoon, but more importantly, I've worked with some very good young folks, and so hats off to you folks, you parents, grandma and grandmas, leaders, an outstanding group. The young man's calf that won the lightweight class, the black steer, he just needs a little more. He's really neat. He's really attractive. He's got enough condition. That's why he won that class, is because he was probably closer to being where we say is right. When you get behind him and look at these 2 behind him, he's on his long. He doesn't probably have that kind of performance in him, but I like his balance. I like his neatness. I like the fact that he does have some cover for his weight. If we were to change him, we just want to make him just a little bit bigger. Just a good, useful kind of calf. The Hereford steer that won the middleweight class, he won that class because he was the one that was the most complete. Had enough muscle, enough shape, enough width in his pins, enough lower quarter, and yet he's neat and attractive down through his lower third. Get your hands on him. He's very fresh to the touch. I just think he's a pretty ideal kind of a steer. Big red steer that was just won our last class, he's probably just a little past where we say 12 o'clock is, but there's just so much muscle, so much shape. I thought in that particular class he was the logical place to start. Our lightweight calf's kind of giving this young man a fit right now. He's a steer that has some future to him. He's just not quite mature enough to run with these other guys, but eye appealing, look and balance, he has those things. He just needs a few more days on feed. Hereford steer right behind him is the neatest finished calf in the group. You put your hands on him, he's just fresh to the touch, but yet he's so even in his finish. It's hard to find Hereford cattle with this kind of finish on them. Young man's done a nice job of feeding him. Steer right behind him is another big, powerful devil. Lots of muscle shape, lots of strength in his hip. Again, he's probably a little larger frame than some of the other cattle out here, but I think big picture things is he's probably not all that far out of bounds. He's just not as pretty as some. Let's give him another round of applause to pick the champion steer. Well, somebody may need to go get the car started, but I think logically the steer that was behind him is going to be reserved. This is an awful good steer. Give him a round of applause.
Congratulations, Grand Champion Market Steer. His dad will probably invite everybody down to the camper afterwards if you want to come on down and celebrate. Trevor Spilker of DeWitt. Reserve Grand Champion Market Steer goes to Trevor Kapke of Wilbur. That concludes the market portion of the show here today. Going to move on to the breeding beef portion of the afternoon. Once again, all these will be shown by breed. Going to go ahead and start with the Angus. There's 3 or less in the breed. You will all show together. If not, we will break it apart. In Angus, we will be able to break these classes apart. Going to start with the spring yearling. On deck should be the junior yearling class, followed by the cow-calf pairs. Charolais should be making their way to the ring, followed by Galway.
Well, a very nice March 2nd heifer to start off our breeding show in our Angus division. Really neat, attractive, got enough rib, very pleasing to the eye. She doesn't want to cooperate very easily for this young lady, but this is a good female with a lot of look for a spring yearling Angus heifer.
Purple award goes to Tatum and Schroeder of Beatrice. At the gate, we'll have our junior yearlings. These are from January 1st, 2021 to February 29th, 2021. Followed by the 2-year-old heifer or cow class.
Three February Angus heifers, and I think they fit together and line up pretty handily. The young man's heifer that's going to lead off, there's just a little more muscle shape, yet very cow-like. If I were to change her, it'd be off her hind leg, and just that length of hind foot, just make that just a little more pleasing. I think if we change the way that hind leg is made, that foot would be different, but a good kind of female that has just enough more to her, enough more look to her. Really trim, neat female in second. If I could change her, just like to see her have a little more body, a little more rib, just a little more volume, more like the heifer that wins. And a bigger framed heifer that's just a little flatter in her kind, has really worked this young lady out, is a good heifer. She fits very nicely. She's sound enough, just not as much heifer as we see in these two in front of them.
Congratulations to the class winner out of that class. It's Addison Brandt of Claytonia. Second place was Baylor Barnard. Third place went to Reese Barnard. In the ring will be the 2-year-old heifer or a cow. Following that, we'll have the cow-calf pair. Tatum Schroeder from the first class, as well as both Addison and Baylor out of that last class, will come back then and compete for the champion Angus and reserve champion breeding animal. Charlotte should be up at the ring. Your classes will begin as soon as the selection of the Angus is completed.
Two-year-old, and I asked the young man where the calf was, and he said, well, they're coming in a bit as a pair, so I guess they show them a couple times. But neat uddered, kind of a female. You can tell by the shape that she's in that she's working hard. It'll be interesting to see what her calf looks like when they get back out here. But an angular, feminine, bigger frame kind of Angus female with a nice udder. Let's give this young man a round of applause.
Congratulations to Gage Argo for receiving a purple in that class. This will be the cow-calf pair for Angus. After this, we'll have the selection of the champion and reserve champion Angus.
Well, here we go. She's right back out here, and I just talked about the cow, but she's got this young calf by her side, and she's doing the job. Really got some bloom, and looks like he's getting fed quite well. A lot of muscle, maybe not as neat to look at out his hip as his mother, but a good kind of calf, a nice pair of cattle.
Receiving a purple is Gage Argo. We'll now compete for the champion and reserve champion Angus. Spring yearling from the first class of Tatum Schroeder. From the junior yearling class will be Addison Brandt and Baylor Barnard. Then the cow-calf pair of Gage Argo. Charlotte should be up at the ring. Move on to Galvey. There's only one class.
Well, as we bring in our class winners, we have the three in front of us that would just come out and won their classes, and I guess the pair again makes another class winner, and then our second place female on the very end. The young lady's heifer that leads off the bunch that was uncontested in class is the best one. I think she has the most quality. She's made very, very well. I like her look and her substance and her eye appeal. Young lady, your heifer will be champion. The next big thing is trying to figure out who's reserve. I think you could make a case for any one of the two remaining, but I like the heifer, yearling heifer the young man has. I think there's just going to be a little more doability to her than the cow. So young man, your heifer will be reserved. Congratulations.
Champion Angus, sponsored by Kamek Farms in DeWitt. That award went to Tatum Schroeder of Beatrice. The Reserve Champion Award, sponsored by Tread Central, went to Addison Brandt of Claytonia. Both Tatum and Addison will need to come back at the end of the breeding show to compete for the overall breeding animal. There is 3 Charolais, so we're going to show them all together. There's a representative here from Landmark Implement. They are the sponsor of the Champion Award, Reserve Champion, sponsored by Roars Machinery. There's a representative from either of those companies. Feel free to come in front of the announcer stand and present the award. Galway will be at the ring. Please have those up there. You will be in next, followed by the Herefords. Galway and Herefords will only have 1 class each. Then we would need Limousine, followed by Main Anjou.
Well, we have 3 different ages of Charolais heifers out here, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Rather than walk them in one at a time, just bring them all 3 and we'll talk about them. The young man's August heifer that leads off the pack is the one over here to my right, and she's probably the most complete. Very, very neat to look at, very attractive. I like her hip, I like the muscle that she shows, but I think more importantly it's her structural balance. The way she moves and her gracefulness, and just very correct, but yet not overdoing it in any one way. The yearling heifer right behind her that is in the middle age group, not quite as feminine in her head, just a little plainer in her jaw. Doesn't have maybe the flank in her that we have in other heifers on either side of her. She is more extended, and with that comes more performance. I will say that. I think there's probably a bit more performance in her, and probably she'll submit that to her calves as well. I'd like to make her look like the 2 heifers on either side of her, though. Then the January heifer the young lady has a bit more moderate over here to my left. A heifer that has some muscle shape. Again, she's pretty useful and attractive. I think both these heifers in the back here, though, give up the quality look to this young man's heifer. She'll be your champion, and reserve will be the young ladies on the other side. Give them a round of applause.
Champion Charolais was shown by Zachary Schnelly of Beatrice. Reserve was Claire Schnelly of DeWitt.
Don't make no difference to me. I just
have a single class of Galways here. If Mark or Patty goes is in the ring or at the show here today of M&P Galway, feel free to come up and award the award that you've sponsored for both the champion and reserve champion. Herefords should be at the gate, followed by Limousine. For the Herefords, looks like they're still looking for Seth Dean. Seth, if you have your animal, bring it up to the ring to check in.
both these Galway Heifers are going to be purple ribbon winners. I'm going to use the more moderate one, and I'll tell you why. I think she's just more feminine, just a bit more cow-like. I like the way she holds her top line and her hooks to her pins, just a little more pleasing there. I know she's going to give up some muscle. I know she's going to give up some performance to the young man's heifer, but I like her. She's just a little more pleasing in the way she's made, a little more relaxed in the way she holds her top. And that's where the bigger, stouter heifer gets in trouble. She kind of wants to roach up in her top, droop in her pins, just not as correct. She does have more performance and she does have more muscle. Two little different kinds of heifers, and I like them both.
Champion Galway goes to Haley Goes of Cortland. Reserve champion Gabriel Goes. I think we might still be looking for one more Hereford of Seth Dean. Final call for Seth. Looks like it's here. One class of Herefords. There's a representative here from Homestead Land Company. Feel free to come to in front of the announcer stand to present the award you have sponsored. Need one class of limousine be up at the gate, followed by a main Anjou with one class of that, and a class of Piedmontese. I'd like to announce that there is water available in the blue cooler over on the west side of the stands here by the herdsmanship boards. There's water in those coolers. Feel free to grab one right now, and they're going to go and refill them again. That is sponsored by Farm Credit Services of America.
Well, again, just two Hereford heifers, and the September heifer to my right, very fresh, very long-bodied. I like the way she moves around the ring. In fact, I told the young man she looks better on the move than she did when he had her on the still. But I like her freshness. She's just a neat, attractive heifer that definitely could stand some competition. Big, high-volume kind of heifer that's our yearling heifer behind her, starting to show a little more chest, maybe not as long up through her front as the heifer right in front of her, but she's a good female. She's sound to the ground. Her udder looks like it's going to be nice. I think they make a nice pair, although I think this heifer calf probably has more future to her, so she'll be your champion and you'll be reserved. Let's give them a round of applause.
Champion in that class, your champion Hereford goes to Dustin Kapke of Clatonia. Reserve champion Seth Dean of Douglas. In the ring now is our lone entry for the limousine. If Jay or Carol Boyer is here from Boyer Limousine, feel free to come down and present the award that you've donated for this single entry. Our main Anjou class should be at the ring, followed by Piedmontese. Both of those breeds will only have one class, followed by a class of polled Herefords.
Well, this young man has an April limousine heifer. who's very neat. She's very attractive off her hind leg and out her hip. She has a nice balanced look. She is just a little plainer jawed. I'd like to change her head just ever so slightly if I could, but very neat, useful female, and I'm sure if he mates her properly, she's going to make him a nice cow. Let's give him a round of applause.
Congratulations to Dalton Dorn of Weimar, your champion limousine. Dalton will need to come back to compete for the overall breeding at the end of the breeding show. Comes a lone entry for the main Anjou. It's a fall heifer. Single class for the Piedmontese breed should be at the gate. I'd like to thank the sponsor of the Anjou Awards. It's Steve and Debbie Ferguson, Ferguson Farms out of Weimar. If either Steve or Debbie are in the facility today, please come to the announcer stand and you can present this award.
Well, a high performance fall main Anjou heifer, a lot of grow and a lot of performance for her age. I'd like to change her just a little bit from hooks to pins and the way her tail head sets in her hip. We change that, then this heifer gets to be pretty useful looking. She's got a lot of length and a lot of performance, a lot of muscle. Just like to change that hind leg and hip as we see it's made.
Top award winner for the main Anjou breed is Mason Sedlacek of Blue Springs. Coming in the ring now, we will have one class of Piedmontese. This class is going to be made up of a spring yearling from March 1st of 2021 to April 30th, 2021, followed by the 2-year-old heifer or cow. We need to have both pulled Herefords, Elise Derrickson and Brianna Spilker, need to be up at the ring. Your class will be next. Followed by one class of Shorthorn. Then we'll move to Simmental.
Probably the closest call all day is these two Pied heifers. They're very, very similar. The young lady's heifer is a spring yearling, was a year old this spring, and then the heifer right behind her will be 2 here in just a few, or maybe even in the end of this month, or I guess in August. So there is some differences in their performance. The young heifer excels maybe a bit more over the older heifer in that regard, but as far as look and balance, they're very, very similar. I guess I still think performance matters. So the young lady's heifer will be your champion. Heifer that looks much like her, that'll be 2 here in a month, will be your reserve. Let's give both these folks a round of applause.
Champion Piedmontese went to Kelsey Schlichtman of Beatrice. Reserve champion goes to Kellen Schlichtman, also Beatrice. At the gate and entering in the ring will be our pulled Hereford. We're going to have one class of those. One of them will be a fall heifer and the other one will be a spring yearling. If Jay and Terry and Naveen are here, come on down and you can present the award if you'd like for the champion and reserve champion pulled Hereford. At the gate should be the Shorthorns, followed by the Simmental.
Well, much like our horned Hereford class, our fall heifer is probably going to be the one that's going to win. This heifer calf that come in and then we moved over because she is the youngest has just got a lot of eye appeal. She's very, very neat, attractive, long-fronted, level hip. She's really lean, so you see what she's like. I like her. I think she has a lot of quality to her. The big yearling heifer the young lady had out here earlier in showmanship is probably going to be more massive when she becomes a cow. She's not quite as pretty, not quite as neat up through her front or as feminine in the way she's made, and she's a big heifer. She's going to have some grow, and surely she'll perform. She'll transmit that performance to her calves, but I like the quality of this young lady's fall heifer calf. She'll be champion, and the bigger heifer will be reserved.
Grand champion pulled Hereford. Congratulations to Elise Derrickson of Wilbur. Reserve champion Brianna Spilker of DeWitt. At the gate should be the lone entry for the Shorthorn. We do need to have the Scimitals come up. I believe they said they are not up here yet, so please make your way. The Scimitals we will be breaking apart into classes due to the number of them. First class would be Rachel Beeler with a spring heifer, followed by Avery Krause and Jordan Van Scoik. You can bring your animals to the ring. Champion Shorthorn Award is sponsored by Landmark Implement. If there's a representative Landmark Implement, feel free to come up and present the award.
Well, our Shorthorn heifer is a yearling, a spring yearling heifer. This heifer definitely has some muscle and some shape. You look at her from the side view, you like the strength and the top that she's got in her. You might like to give her just a little bit of femininity in her neck and head as it comes up out of her shoulder. She's actually maybe a little taller at her front shoulder than she is at her hip, and so maybe level her there just a little bit. But a heifer that definitely wide base, definitely got some muscle in her and moves pretty well.
Top Shorthorn showed by Shelton Crawford of Beatrice. Shelton will come back and compete for the overall breeding beef at the end of the show. Breeding beef show. Here's a spring heifer of the Scimitals. This will be followed by the fall heifer class. Spring yearlings as well as junior yearlings should also start coming up to the ring.
Well, as we kick off the Scimital show, we have a nice February heifer calf. Obviously, she's alert. I like her front end a lot. I think she's very neat, very made, very cow-like up through her front, very level in her hips. She's going to have some lower body as she becomes a cow. She just looks like she'll make a wonderful cow. Where I'd change her would be off her hind leg a bit as you see her on the move.
Purple is presented to Rachel Beeler of Sterling. At the gate, coming in, should be the fall heifer class. This will include Avery Krause and Jordan Van Scoik. Then need to have the spring yearlings and junior yearlings.
I changed it on you. This is a nice pair of Simmental heifer calves. I mean, you can probably make a case for either one of them to win, but I just think there's more overall quality in the structure of the heifer that wins. I just like her head better. I like the way her tail head comes out of her hip just a little better. And she's a very strong, useful kind of female with a lot of quality. I like her quite a lot. And that isn't to take a thing away from this young lady's heifer that's in second. When she come in, I thought, well, this is a pretty darn good heifer. Long-bodied. She's also got some rib and some strength in her hip. Not quite as neat and as attractive in her head as the heifer in front of her. And that's nitpicking. But two good heifers. I just think there's more looks and more quality in the heifer that wins. Let's give both these young ladies a round of applause for a nice pair of heifers.
Top purple in the fall heifer class goes to Jordan Van Scoik. Avery Krause also received a purple in that class. At the gate, coming in the ring is our spring yearlings. On deck will be the junior yearling class of Simmental. After the junior class, we will need to have the senior yearling and the cow-calf pair.
Little different kinds of yearling Simmental heifers. I'm going to use a heifer that just appears to have a little more muscle shape to her, just a little more strength. And I think as you look at her, she's carrying also a little more condition down through her lower third. It's starting to fill in her udder a bit, and you can see it up in her chest. But I think there's just a little more power in the way she's put together, and I think she's neater where her neck comes up out of her shoulder. That's where this young man's heifer kind of gets off. She gets a little bit ewe-necked, but I like her neatness. I think she's just a little bit behind the heifer in front of her, somewhere in between as far as conditioning would be probably where we'd want them. This heifer's a little greener, but she's neat, she's attractive, both really useful cattle.
Top spring yearling receiving a purple was Brecken Niemeyer. Also receiving a purple was Boston Crawford. All of our first and second places in these previous three classes for Simmental will need to come back after the cow-calf pair Simmental class to compete for the champion and reserve champion Simmental. At the gate, a class that will consist of 6 head. This will be our junior yearling class. Following that, we need the lone entry of the senior yearling and the lone entry of the cow-calf pair. Foundation Simmentals will be the breed that comes up next after the champion and reserve Simmental.
let's go 2 purples and the rest, 2 purples, 2 blues, and 2 reds. Well, these 2 out here on the north side are going to be your purple ribbon winners in this class of Simmentals. There's some differences in them. The black heifer, I think, is the most complete structurally. She kind of sets her tail head into her hip a little better. She's a little stronger in her loin. She isn't as long-bodied as the heifer behind her, but I think she just put together just a little more securely. I like her muscle shape. I think she's just a pretty useful kind of female. I like the broodiness of the red heifer quite a lot. Fact is, if we could set her tail head into her hip just a little neater, she'd win the class. But she's not quite as good there as our heifer that wins, and for that reason I'm going to put her second. But she's very broody. She's very cow-like. I think this young man's going to have a really good cow with her. The heifer in third, to me, just lands there. She's not as correctly off her hind leg as those 2 in front of her, but she's long-bodied, she's level, her underline starts to form. It looks very, very good. Around her hipped heifer that's in fourth, I think, she's just broodier and just a little more flexible in her way she's made structurally, so I think this young lady needs to land there. Our 2 red ribbon heifers are just a little plainer in their design. Young man's heifer that's kind of dappled in color has a little more ribbon body than the heifer that completes the class.
Results of the junior yearling class receiving first purple, Natalie Dean. Second purple goes to Seth Dean. Blue was awarded to Shelton Crawford and Savannah Mason. Reds were given to Cash Bergen and Logan Koenig. In the ring now is a senior yearling class, followed by a cow-calf pair. All the first and second place class winners of the Simmentals will come back then and compete for the champion and reserve champion Simmental.
A very good senior yearling heifer. This young man had her out in showmanship, I believe, earlier. There's a lot of look in this heifer. I'm saying she'll be 2 here in September, probably going to calve sometime this fall. I really like her. I think she has quality to burn. I think she has look and substance and depth of rib. Just a very nice kind of Simmental female.
Purple senior yearling winner is Luke Katz of Beatrice. Been asked to announce that anybody who has a stocker feeder that was not checked in this morning, in the next, at 3 o'clock, outside the front door over here to the south, that's where they're going to, any stocker feeder that has not been registered yet, bring your animal up at that point and they will get it added to the schedule. 3 o'clock for the stocker feeders at the south door. Anyone interested in livestock judging, the sign-up sheet for that is over on the west side of the stands over here by the herdsmanship board. You can sign up for the livestock judging contest. That'll start at 1 o'clock on Saturday or 30 minutes after the hog show.
Well, our cow-calf division is very, very good, even though there's just 1 pair. A good kind of female, modern in her kind, very cow-like in her appearance. Got a pretty useful udder. We could maybe change the fore-udder just a slight amount, but teats are spread out and are very desirable in their shape and kind. And she's got a February heifer calf that probably has more show ring look than her mother. Maybe not as deep-ribbed as her mom, but a nice pair of cattle. Let's give these folks a round of applause.
Elsie Warner was the Purple Award winner for the cow-calf pair class. We'll now select the champion and reserve champion Simmental. If Tronic Simmentals of Wymore or State Line Farms Simmentals, Jim and Ellen Zavonik of Wymore are present, feel free to come to the announcer stand and hand out the awards. Foundation Simmental should be coming up to the ring. We will have separate classes for the Foundation Simmental. This class is made up of the Spring Heifer of Rachel Beeler, Fall Heifers of Jordan Van Scoik and Avery Krause, Spring Yearlings of Brecken Niemeyer and Boston Crawford, Junior Yearlings Natalie Dean and Seth Dean, Senior Yearlings shown by Luke Katz, Cow-Calf pair by Elsie Warner. Champion dive for the champion and reserve champion Simmental breeding.
Well, it's been a really, really good Simmental show. Let's put our hands together and thank these young folks showing them. The heifer calf that won the first class, she definitely could stand competition. She's got a neat look to her, like the rib and the volume that she has, and her levelness of her hip. As I said earlier, if I were to change her, it'd be her hind leg. The fall heifer that's right behind her, there was a pair of fall heifers in that class, and both have a lot of quality. I just think this heifer is one of the trio of ones that's in contention to win. I think she's very useful in her kind. She comes to ground very usefully. She's very level out her hip and got some strength and performance with her. Baldy heifer that wins class 3, pretty muscular kind of a heifer. I like the strength and the stoutness that she shows. Probably not in the same league as those trio I was talking about, but a very good kind of a female. The black heifer that wins class 4, her and her red counterpart that was second to her, they were really good, useful cattle. And this heifer's just kind of neat and attractive in the way she's put together. Maybe not as long-sided as some of the cattle out here, and that's where she got in trouble with the heifer that was red to her, too. She's maybe could just be stretched out just ever so slightly. But, young lady, if you get her mated right, that's going to make a good kind of a cow. The Baldy senior yearling the young man has down there in the corner, she's one of those trio that I'm talking about. Level-hipped, long neck, stout in the way she's constructed. Looks like her udder's going to be pretty useful as we see it starting to form. Once you get out on the move, if you were to change her, maybe just ever so slightly how she comes to ground, but that's an awfully good female and definitely one of those trio. The third member of the trio is the cow. I think this is a good, useful, practical cow with a very nice heifer calf. Cow may not be in the same league as the two I'm talking about in the trio as far as being show heifers. Practicality-wise, and the fact that she's got the Q-pun on her kind of gets her in that category. Once again, give them a round of applause, and I'll pick your champion in reserve. I think with this kind of quality, I probably ought to tell you what I'm seeing. I'm going to use the two falls. I'm going to use the fall heifer calf and the other big fall to be your champion in reserve, and I think it's really, really close. Our fall heifer calf may not come down to the ground just as true up front, where the other cow, the senior yearling, maybe doesn't come off the hind foot just as perfectly either, but to me, it's close, it's nitpicking, but I'm going to use the baldy heifer to be your champion, the young man down there, and the fall heifer in front of me to be reserve. Let's give him a round of applause.
Okay. Champion Simmental, congratulations. That goes to Luke Katz of Beatrice. The reserve champion goes to Jordan Van Scoik of Beatrice. Both of those animals that come back and compete for the overall breeding after the commercial. At the ring should be the Foundation Simmental. We will have separate classes of these. This will be the first class. This is your spring heifer class. At the gate should be the fall heifer class, a single entry, and then spring yearlings and junior yearlings.
Well, these two heifers are very similar aged, and I think as you come in, they're both, as I see them, both very good cattle. The young lady's heifer to my right, there's just a little more to her, just a little more pleasing, a little more width probably, but from hooks to pins, a lot of robustness and rib to her as well. Nice kind of female, and I like the femininity of this female in second. I think she's going to make a very good kind of brood cow, and to me today there isn't quite as much there, but as she develops, she could be very, very useful. Two very, very good kind of females to start off this show.
Spring Heifer Award winner receiving purple is Rachel Beeler. Second place also receiving the purple, Carly Rains. To the ring now should be Luke Katz with his fall heifer. Be a single entry. Any stocker feeders that have not been checked in yet, please go to the overhead doors on the south side of the building. Be checking those in so they can finish out the program. This is our fall heifer class. At the gate should be the spring yearling, followed by the junior yearlings. We'll then pick the champion or reserve champion Foundation Simmental, and we will go into the first class of commercial.
We're a very long-bodied senior heifer calf in our Sim Angus or Sim Solution, or I guess that's what it's called. A very long-bodied kind of female that maybe give her a little more flank and just free her up a little bit off her hind leg. When he gets her on the stand view profile, she gives you a very neat kind of look. Just a long-bodied kind of feminine kind of a female.
Receiving a purple in the fall heifer class goes to Luke Katz. At the gate should be our spring yearling of Addison Tiemann. On deck will be the junior yearling class with 2 entries.
Well, this young lady spring yearling heifer in Simmental Foundation really has just a pretty useful kind of look. I love the way her underline is starting to form. I believe she's going to be very, very cow-like. Looks like she's going to transmit some maternal characteristics in the way she's made. Just a good, useful, practical size kind of a heifer.
Receiving a purple in the spring yearling class is Addison Tiemann. At the gate should be the junior yearlings. 2 entries in this class. Following that, we will have the top 2 foundation Simmentals from each of the previous classes to come back and compete for the overall champion and reserve champion foundation Simmental.
This February heifer is, you really need to look at her. There's a lot of muscle in this heifer, a lot of shape, long-bodied, level hip, strong made, moderate made. I think she's going to make a fantastic kind of cow. As you can see, her udder starting to form, very level and very well spaced. Nice kind of female. It's just a little stouter perhaps than we've been looking at.
Receiving top purple is Avery Krause. Top 2 from, or the top purple award winners from each of the previous classes should be coming up for Foundation Simmental. From the spring heifer class, it should be Rachel Beeler and Carly Rains. Fall heifer of Luke Katz. Spring yearling of Addison Tiemann. Junior yearling of Avery Krause. Spring heifers, fall heifers, and summer intermediate heifers of the commercial division or breed should be bringing your animals to the ring. If you have any stocker feeders to check in, now is the time at the west or the south overhead door. Stocker feeders, go ahead and get those registered over at the south door.
Well, another very good show, folks. Let's put our hands together and show these folks showing Foundation Simmentals a round of applause. Our heifer calf on my right and the second heifer tour on my left, both nice heifer calves. So just really a lot of future to them. Both of them could go a lot of places and stand some competition. That's the kind of heifers they are. Our fall heifer that's just directly south of me, long bodied. Maybe doesn't have the show ring look that the heifers on either side of her have, but a good long bodied, long made, high performance kind of a heifer. The baldy heifer that's third in the lineup, again, I think she's got some look, a practicality. She's going to have a nice underline as you see it starting to form. Just a good, useful, practical heifer. Then the dark, totally black heifer that won the last class, she's kind of used, as I talked about her, she's kind of unique. She's not big framed, but yet there's a lot of body and a lot of rib in her, strong in her makeup. But yet there's just that air of look like she's going to make a cow. The way her teats are spread out, the way her underline's starting to form. I just think she's really, really unique. Young lady, she'll be your champion. Let's give her a round of applause. Reserve gets a little tighter because any one of this trio you could make a case for. I think the one with the most eye appeal, this young lady's heifer calf, she'll be reserve champion. Congratulations.
Champion Foundation Simmental goes to Avery Krause of Burr, reserve champion Rachel Beeler of Sterling. Both Avery and Rachel will need to come back following the selection of the commercial breeding animal to compete for the overall breeding. Entering the ring should be the spring heifers for the commercial. 3 entries in this class, followed by a double entry of fall heifers. At the gate should be the fall heifer class. On deck will be the summer or intermediate heifer.
Well, a pair of February heifers to kick off the commercial show, and both are very sound. I think are both very useful that way. The young lady's heifer that leads off, though, just has more show ring presence. There's just more rib and body in her and eye appeal. Just a very useful heifer to start the class. The young man's heifer isn't quite as neat and as attractive, doesn't have the body and rib. She does move very soundly, though, and I think she'll show us some longevity because of that.
Winning that class, receiving a purple, is Carly Rains. Also receiving a purple is Augie Wallenberg. Entering the ring is the fall heifer class for commercial. At the gate should be the summer or intermediate heifer. On deck will be our spring yearlings.
Well, two very useful commercial heifers. I'm going to switch them as to how they come in. The young man's heifer is just a little more pleasing to me. Just has a little more balance. She gives up some performance, some weight per day of age possibly, but I think she makes up for it in quality of look and just the way she's made structurally. Just very neat, very attractive heifer that's pretty much middle of the road all the way through. The heifer that's second to her needs to be back here head to tail with her, is higher performing. There's probably just a little more weight per day of age in her. She isn't as pleasing up through her front nor out of her hip as the heifer that wins the class. Two good, useful females.
Top purple for the fall heifer class goes to Landry Krause. Second purple went to Berkeley Beekman. Entering the ring will be our summer intermediate heifer single entry. At the gate should be our spring yearling class. That will then be followed by the junior yearling class. After the junior yearlings, we have the champion and reserve champion for the commercial breed. After that, we need the grand and reserve champions of all the breeds that we've had to come back to compete for the overall breeding beef prior to going into the stocker feeder show.
Young man spring yearling heifer in the commercial show is definitely muscular. She's level top, level hipped. I like that about her. Where I'd change her, I'd like to see her have a little neater hind leg, especially in her hock. As you see her walk, she's just got some stability there that I'd like to change. Clean her up a little bit in her hock, give her just a little bit more femininity in her head.
Receiving a purple for the summer intermediate yearling heifer went to Dayton Pullman of DeWitt. All right, we're going to make it a little bit harder on our judge. We have, I believe, 12 entries in this next class. This is going to be the spring yearlings from March 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021. On deck will be the junior yearlings.
right, guys, go that way, and then go that way. Go towards the wall. There you go. As I pull them, we're going to have to move them, or we won't be able to put her down here. But let's bring her down there. This way. Now, guys, move forward. There you go. You guys go in. Bring that red heifer. Get the red one out right here. Walk them again. You guys pull up. Pull up. Right down here. There you go.
Well, let's give this biggest class of the day a round of applause. A nice group of cattle. There's some differences in sizes and shapes and definitely how the breed makeups are, so it makes it challenging. But the heifer that wins rather handily. She's got just enough more rib and volume to her that, and then she does it and puts it in a very nice package as far as the way she walks and the way she moves. Wins it rather handily. You could get the next three heifers out here and argue about who gets third or second, but the heifer that's second to me is the most fault-free comparing everything to the heifer that wins. She doesn't have the fleshing ability, but I think she's very pleasing to the eye, very level in her hip, got some real muscle shape to her. She's obviously a little leaner too and probably haven't been fed as much. Pretty good kind of a heifer. The red heifer in third, if we could level out her top, she gets real competitive. She tends to want to roach up a little bit, but she's very, very neat, very attractive, going to have a beautiful udders. You see it starting to form. It's a very nice kind of a female. I contemplated switching her and the young man in fourth because that heifer is a little better in her top. Let's go ahead and lead her out. And to me, though, she's not as neat up through her front, doesn't have quite as much quality as that far, but she does handle her top better. Young man right behind her with a slick-haired heifer just turning, very long-bodied kind of female, very level-hipped. I like that about her. Black heifer, the young man turning just now, probably one of the thicker-made kind of females, just not as neat off her hind leg. Just like to see her have a little more flex, just be a little more cow-like through the middle part of her body. Big red heifer, the stoutest heifer in the class. Not sure she isn't in heat today by the way she's messing on her rear end. I feel sorry for him because I wish she was bred at this point. Heifer right behind her, another big long-bodied heifer that gets a little tied up in her flank. Four remaining heifers are very useful. I think they're very practical. I think as you watch them walk and look at their base width and look at the way they're made out of their lines, just not as neat as those in front of them. Let's give them another round of applause. A nice big class of heifers.
If anyone needs a nap today, it's you.
Yeah, I'm going.
At the gate should be the junior yearling class. So final class of commercial breeding. Congratulations to our spring yearling. Once again, a big class. Class won by Landry Krause. Second place in that class was Evan Quackenbush. Class consisted of 5 purples, 4 blues, and 3 reds. Remaining purples went to Lane Schnelly, Landon Cook, Peyton Humphreys. Receiving blues, Brecken Niemeyer, Jaden Thompson, Braden Humphreys, Boston Crawford, and receiving reds, Strider Brandt, Miley Gaddy, Devin Anderson. The conclusion of this class, we need to have all the first and second class winners return for the commercial breeding and reserve champion commercial breeding selection. Following that, the grand and reserves for all the breeds that we have need to come back and compete for the grand and reserve champion breeding beef.
Well, the young lady's bobtailed heifer, I think there's just a little more muscle expression in her. Like to set her tail head into her hip just a little neater, but there's more rib and volume, more strength when you get behind her. Very feminine female that's in second, very level hip, probably going to be one of those that's going to be very, very milky, be my guess, when she when she becomes a cow. She's a little harder in her appearance, probably doesn't have the muscle shape, but I'd say she's real maternal. Two contrasting kind of niece and heifer cow, yearling heifers.
Receiving top purple in the junior yearling class goes to Angus Koenig. Second place, also receiving the purple, is Braden Humphreys. We'll now have selection for the Grandin Reserve Champion commercial. Out of our spring heifer class, we'll have Carly Rains and Augie Wallenberg. Fall heifer class comes Landry Krause and Berkeley Beekman. Summer intermediate heifer class is Dayton Pullman. Spring yearling class consisted of Landy Krause and Evan Quackenbush. And out of the last class, the junior yearling class, we'll have Braden Humphreys and Addison Koenig. Once again, this is for the selection of your champion and reserve champion commercial breeding beef. Your champion award is sponsored by Beeler Show Cattle of Sterling. Reserve champion sponsored by Zollner Ford Lincoln of Beatrice. Representatives from either of those two organizations would like to come to the announcer stand. You are more than welcome to hand out the award that you have donated. We need to have all first and second place animals from all breeds. Please come to the ring for selection of the Grandin Reserve Champion breeding beef.
Well, more importantly than anything, let's give all the kiddos that were shown in the commercial division a round of applause. These are just our first place winners. The second places are on hold out back, but a nice group. The heifer calf that wins the first class, very neat, very attractive. I think she has a lot of future to her, very cow-like, just really nice to look at. The heifer right behind her, really strong in her makeup. Maybe not as neat up through her neck and where her neck comes out of her shoulder as some of them out here, but a good heifer that has some hip in her, very neat to look at. Big heifer the young man has here that's just in front of me that's giving him the fits is very strong in her makeup. She's very powerful and very muscular. If I were to change her, I'd give her a little more rib and a little more volume right in her flank up through her rib and just make her a little more cow-like. The heifer that won the big class, the one the fourth out here in the drive, very deep, very volume, lots of volume, very pleasing to the eye when you look at her balance and the way her hip comes up and her tail head fits into her hip. Just very cow-like. I think she's going to make him a really, really nice kind of a female. Then her bobtailed heifer from the last class, very muscular. Again, if I was to change her, I'd level out her hip and just change the way, her hip isn't so bad, it's just change that tail head and set it down into her hip just ever so slightly. To me, the one that hits me the hardest is this young man, the one in the big class. He'll be your champ, and we'll bring in his second place and pick a reserve. Our second place heifer coming around the ring here that was to our champion, a big-bodied, big muscular kind of a female. But like I said, she's a little more in her working clothes as far as conditions. So what you see is what you get, and I like her. I think she's strong in her makeup. To me, though, the one that's most like our champion is this young lady's heifer off to the right, this heifer calf. She'll be your reserve champion.
Champion commercial breeding beef goes to Landry Krause of Burr. Reserve champion goes to Carly Rains of Dorchester. After the selection of the champion and reserve champion breeding beef, we will go into the stocker feeders, but there will be a 10-minute break in between the selection of the champion breeding before we go into the stocker feeders. Once again, a 10-minute break. Now have the selection for the champion and reserve champion overall breeding beef at the 2022 Gage County Fair and Expo. Champion Angus is shown by Tatum Schroeder of Beatrice. Chalet in the ring is Zachary Schnelly of Beatrice. Galway is Haley Goes of Cortland. Hereford is shown by Dustin Kapke of Claytonia. Limousine goes to Dalton Dorn of Wymore. Minanju is Mason Sedlacek of Blue Springs. The Piedmontese is Kelsey Schlichtman of Beatrice. Polled Hereford, Elise Derrickson of Wilbur. Shorthorn is Shelton Crawford of Beatrice. Champion Simmental, shown by Luke Katz of Beatrice. Foundation Simmental, Avery Krause of Burr. And your champion commercial, Landry Krause of Burr. And once again, this is for the selection of the Grand and Reserve Champion Breeding Beef here at the fair. Grand Champion Breeding Beef, sponsored by Booth Feeds of Beatrice. There is a representative here of Booth Feeds if you would like to come out and hand out this high-profile award, one of the top awards given here at the fair. Please come forward. You're more than welcome to hand that out. Following selection of this class, once again, a 10-minute break before we go into the stocker feeders. In the ring is our champion of all the breeds. If you are a reserve of one of these breeds, though, you need to be up at the gate just in case your breed wins. You will be able to compete as the reserve. Please bring those animals up to the ring now. Once again today, we'd like to thank our judge, Kevin Jansen of Cortland, Kansas, where he ranches with his wife, Sheila. They raise Herefords, have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. Very lucky to have him here today and privileged to have him here today. I understand he's only judged 2 county fairs this year, and this is one of them. So he has judged throughout the United States, New Zealand, Australia, and South America, and it's a privilege to have him here today. Let's give a big hand to our judge, Kevin Jansen.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Like he said, I never have been able to judge many county fairs just simply because of time, but ones like this are special. You need to kind of clap each other on the back and say you've got a really good county fair. Let's just put our hands together and thank all these young folks that are putting this on. You know, we stop and we wonder, I've been at home on the fair board. We've been getting ready for our fair next week. In fact, your carnival drives to Balville for us next week, and we're going to do the same thing you're doing, you know. And I was reading the paper last night, our local paper, and it says step back in the past. You know, maybe county fairs are a step back in the past, but really, why do we have county fairs? We have county fairs to let the kids have a little fun, show their wares, and bring agricultural products to town. And you know, what's wrong with that? In our day and age, we don't have enough of that. Each and every one of our families in the big cities are getting another generation further away from the farm and probably have no clue what it's really like. And you know what? I wish they did have a clue, and how better way of doing it than getting kids to come to towns like Beatrice and show their wares, and let's show them how farm families live. I've got a number of good heifers. You could use a number of these heifers and be very, very proud of the heifers that have been out here. Let's put our hands together one more time, and I'll pick the champion in reserve.
Congratulations to our Grand Champion breeding beef, the Grand and Reserve, both Semitals. Have some proud parents of Luke Katz of Beatrice. He was your Grand Champion. Reserve Champion goes to Jordan Van Skoik of Beatrice. Let's give each of these kids a big round of applause. Great group of cattle in the ring. Way to represent Gage County. Okay, it's 3:45. At 3:55, we will plan to have the animals lined up at the gate to start the stocker feeder class. 3:55.